So we are live now. Greetings everyone. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon based on your geographical locations. Welcome to the Journalist and Writers Foundation CSW68 virtual panel discussion, SHEconomy, Strengthening Institutions and Women's Leadership for Socio-Economic Development. I'm Priyanka Chahal, JWF Youth Representative to United Nations Department of Global Communications and also the Program Associate for Journalists and Writers Foundation. Just to introduce you about JWF, JWF is an international civil society organization dedicated to the culture of peace, human rights, and sustainable development. And affiliated with the UN Department of Global Communication, the JWF has been actively participating in the CSW sessions, mobilizing its global partners from all around the world, and for gender-sensitive implementations of sustainable development goals too. And as we all know that 68th Annual Commission on the Status of Women, the UN largest annual gathering on gender equality and women's empowerment, is taking place from 11 to 22 March this year. And the priority theme for this is accelerating the achievement for gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls by addressing poverty and strengthening institutions and foundation with a gender perspective. And even our today panel is also aligned with this priority theme, and we are going to have a great group of panelists that will be discussing and sharing the great remarks that we are needed to share to the world and the issues to be addressed. We are greatly organizing with our global partners the different CSW side events in New York as well. We have already successfully completed the first week of CSW68 with a great number of panels. And in this 11th year participating at the CSW, we are more than thrilled to collaborate with our global partners from and educators from different states of United States of America, Belgium, and then Canada, Greece, India, Romania, Kenya, Tanzania, and organizing 12 panel discussions covering many different priorities. And before we turn into the remarks of our panelists today, and I'll be introducing them to you all. So I would also like to share a brief insight for this session, that why it is important and why we are even discussing about this great title today. So the world is at a crucial crossroad for gender equality globally. 10.3% of women live in extreme poverty today. According to the UN Commission on the Status of Women, they are poorer than men, and progress towards entering poverty needs to be 26 times faster to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. So accelerated progress requires investment. Data from 48 developing countries shows that the additional $36 billion is needed per year to achieve the gender equality and women's empowerment across key global goals, including to end poverty and hunger. So our session today aims to address the multifaceted dimensions of accelerating progress in this realm with a particular focus on economic development, then institutional strengthening, and financing mechanism that is infused with the gender perspective, and by addressing the nexus between economic empowerment and institutional capacity. So we aspire to chart a course towards more equitable and inclusive society. So it will also emphasize the significant role of grassroots women leadership. I think that's very important in socio-economic development. And our panelists will also discuss about their experiencing and their expertise on this specific topic of entrepreneurship. And also the discussion will scrutinize the policy impact on gender equality, inclusive socio-economic culture and supportive environment. So I would like to first introduce our keynote speaker today, Mr. Rakesh. Rakesh Ganguli. He is the gender policy and inclusive specialist from the UN Women India. Rakesh is a senior development practitioner working at the intersection of gender equality and public policy. He has worked with various organizations in India, internationally, and for over 20 years on a range of development issues, including gender mainstreaming in urban infrastructure and mobility, rural development, disaster management, peace and conflict transformation, and continuously engaging in the public policy, among others, too. He has held leadership positions in large development programs supported by UN Women, DFID, World Bank, UNDP, and other policy making and strategy and evaluations work globally. Rakesh also contributed to the first ever formative global evaluation of UNDP contribution to the principle of leaving no one behind. NOB as national consultant and co-developed a reflection paper on contributions, gender as an SDG accelerator. And Mr. Rakesh has also written for development magazines on issues for women labor, informal sector, and land acquisitions from community perspective. He holds his postgraduate degree in social work from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, India, and currently associated as the policy specialist at the UN Women Office in India. So over to you, Mr. Rakesh. We are very happy to have you today.
Thank you so much, Priyanka. Hello, everyone. It's an honor and a pleasure to be on this panel with accomplished panelists. I would like to begin with thanking the Journalists and Writers Foundation, the Indialogue Foundation, GIOSTAR USA, and the Commonwealth Chambers of Commerce for organizing this side event and having me on this panel. Thank you, Priyanka. In the interest of time, I'll keep my presentation brief and try to touch upon key issues and perspectives around advancing gender-responsive policies and inclusive economic growth. Priyanka, I think you've already started, you got us started onto the data, but let us begin by considering some global statistics. The global gender gap score in 2023 stands at 68.4%, indicating a modest improvement of 0.3 percentage points compared to the previous year. At the current rate of progress, it would take 131 years to achieve full gender parity, showing a significant slowdown in the overall rate of change. The gender gap in economic participation and opportunity stands at 60.1% globally, highlighting the persistent challenges in achieving gender equality in the workforce. The gender gap in economic participation and opportunity is projected to close in 169 years. According to the 2023 Global Gender Gap Index, no country has yet achieved full gender parity. Programs dedicated to gender equality and women's empowerment are decreasing, receiving no more than 4% of total bilateral aid in 2023. According to UN Women, a significant obstacle to achieving gender equality by 2030 is the alarming deficit in financing with a staggering US $360 billion annual shortfall, what Priyanka just referred to in spending on gender equality measures. This funding gap underscores again the persistent inequalities that continue to hinder progress despite increasing recognition of women's rights. A few weeks ago, the UN Secretary General pointed that a global backlash against women's rights is threatening and in some cases reversing progress in developing and developed countries alike. At the current rate of change, legal equality for women could take up to 300 years to achieve, and so could ending child marriage. The Secretary General also pointed to a persistent epidemic of gender-based violence, a gender pay gap of at least 20%, and the underrepresentation of women in politics. It is no wonder then that only 15% of the 14 SDG 5 indicators with data are currently on track to achieve gender equality and empowerment for all women and girls by 2030. So despite growing evidence demonstrating the critical contributions of women that make to improve democratic governance, national security, economic development, health outcomes, and poverty eradication, women and girls remain invisible with many obstacles to their full participation in public and private sectors, and their labor remains grossly unaccounted. There are systemic barriers hindering women's full participation in economic activities and leadership roles, and the resulting gender gap is affecting social and economic growth globally. Despite the increase in female labor force participation and the actions that various governments have undertaken at different levels, women still do not have the same opportunities as men to participate in economic activities in most countries. So while efforts towards inclusive growth have been made over the past few decades, unless the gender dimensions of inclusive growth are made explicit, and unless policies for inclusive growth aim to improve women's well-being and address gender gaps, it is unlikely that growth will benefit women and men equally. Economic growth, as we understand, is an inherently gendered process because economies are gendered structures, whereby gender-based inequalities are barriers to shared prosperity. Therefore, gender-inclusive growth requires the entire pattern and process of growth to be changed to ensure prosperity shared more equally between men and women, and the lives of both men and women are transferred. In other words, we need to ensure that inclusive growth policies work for women and not the other way around. As noted in the 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development, sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth is essential for prosperity. This will only be possible if wealth is shared and income inequality is addressed. But the principal concern about inclusive growth has largely been about class equity and not gender equity. We heard in large development programs, categories as people who are marginalized, vulnerable, etc. But we rarely hear about women or gender issues. For growth to be truly inclusive and gender equitable, the pattern of growth must create decent work and productive employment opportunities for women and men both. Since the mid-1980s, many countries have adopted fiscal policy measures to promote gender equality. Gender gaps in primary school enrollment have largely been closed across all regions of the globe. Progress has also been made in reducing gaps in secondary school enrollment, and women's access to healthcare has also improved. However, gender gaps in labor force participation rates in most regions of the world are still sizable. Many countries have invested in education and training for women that has resulted in improved access to financial services and reduced legal barriers to women's economic activity. Gender-responsive policies, especially addressing women's needs, have focused on cash transfers, social protection, childcare initiatives, paid parental leave, fiscal policies to promote female labor force participation, allowing for more flexible work hours, improved labor mobility, improved safety and security of women, especially at the workplace and in public spaces, and gender budgeting. Out of these, one of the most widely implemented policies worldwide is gender budgeting since the mid-1980s. And as of 2018, more than 80 countries have adopted gender budgeting with various levels of intensity. Gender-responsive policies, as we know, are crucial to achieving sustainable development as they enable women and girls to participate fully in and benefit equally from socio-economic opportunities. Eliminating gender inequalities not only increases women's economic participation and boosts economic growth, but also improves their overall well-being. It is more than evident that gender gaps are responsible for significant losses in economic growth. There's a lot of statistics which I'll skip for now. I'm sure that the panelists will touch upon them and we can come back to that later. So it is more than evident that gender gaps are responsible for significant losses in economic growth, human development, and more generally, sustainable development at the time, and the time for action is now. However, there are challenges. National governments and relevant stakeholders often lack the technical knowledge and skills such as collecting and analyzing gender disaggregated data, conducting gender analysis, and developing gender-responsive policies, programs, and schemes. As a result, gender inequality and women's empowerment considerations are not integrated, and the needs and aspirations of women and girls remain inadequately addressed. This results in the perpetuation of gender disparities and the economic marginalization of women and girls. Often, even when there is a political commitment towards gender equality, the insufficient investment in gender-responsive policy interventions can minimize positive impacts on the livelihoods and empowerment of women and girls. A key challenge hindering both policy formulation, implementation, and monitoring is the lack of adequate gender-sensitive data, including data that is disaggregated by sex, age, and other social categories and characteristics. Despite challenges, it is important to recognize that gender equitable and inclusive growth is possible. Some of the future policy directions for inclusive growth could include using gender-inclusive policy language, redistributing unpaid care work, providing care services, adopting measures to enable and incentivize men to take on more care work, addressing structural barriers to gender equality. A lot of policies we see, I'm not going to go into details of each of these, but some of these are very, very critical. So a lot of times we see that policies tend to bypass, structural issues. Okay, they're very transactional and tokenistic. So unless we are able to, formulate policies that address structural barriers, it will not result in inclusive growth, especially for women and girls. Addressing gender-based violence. Again, gender-based violence is always we see that economic opportunities are prioritized over, gender-based violence, assuming that once you have economic prosperity, it'll automatically take care of gender-based violence. And there is a lot of evidence on the contrary. Okay. We also need to create sort of decent work conditions, leveraging and promoting progressive labor laws, strengthening accountability mechanisms, increasing investment and financing for gender inclusive growth, recognizing and addressing intersectional needs. We are still very far from recognizing, intersectional needs. We still look at women as a monolithic kind of category, right? Collecting gender disaggregated data and conducting gender analysis, capacity building and gender sensitization of key stakeholders. To summarize, gender equitable growth would be a pattern and process of growth that ensures prosperity is shared between men and women in ways that reduce gender inequality, would eliminate gender gaps in employment and decent work for both women and men, require public investments to increase physical and social infrastructure that supports social reproduction so that it is accessible and affordable to all women and men. It requires more than the elimination of gender gaps, because there's a lot of focus on gender gaps, okay, and closing the gender gap. Yeah. So one is that we have access to financial, so women have access to financial services, yet it requires changes in the provision and regulation of financial services. Okay, what are the terms of these financial services for women, and to ensure that real benefits are available for low-income women. Gender inclusive growth cannot be achieved by focusing only on reducing gender gaps and ignoring the deep-rooted power imbalances between the genders and between capital and labor. It requires new models of growth that reduce gender gaps while at the same time reducing the gaps between the shares of capital and labor. Yeah. Finally, it is important to recognize that gender responsive policymaking helps more than just women. It is about addressing the different needs and priorities of all persons regardless of their sex. Such policies help ensure that all members of a community are equally valued, policies are more effective, and the world is more just, productive, and peaceful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rakesh. So you have provided a great, statistics, and so our audience can even aware of that, and that's very imperative and significant numbers of statistics that you just shared with us. Thank you so much. And as you already mentioned, that without the economic empowerment and closing the gender gaps, it's just not one area, but we have to have the different dimension models to collectively work on those issues, and that will automatically indicate the others too. So there's a kind of a chain we have to work on. And also, gender equality is crucial for eliminating extreme poverty, as you already mentioned, and advancing a peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world. Also, poverty can't be eradicated without achieving gender equality, right? And entailing promotion of equal rights and opportunities for women and men. Disparities in accessing the education, then health services and labor force that undermine the society's full potential. And impair the economic growth. So, yes, gender inequality is a global concern, and regardless of the country's development status, as you already mentioned in your remarks too. I remember I was reading the Sustainable Development Goals Report 2023, and I found that the progress towards this goal is SDG 5, which we know as our gender equality goal, is slow and off track. For 23 targets, only 50.4% of the indicators are on track, and 61.5% are moderately on track. So they are just moderately, but not on the right track. And 23.1% are significantly off the track. So we can see that, and we can read the report as well. That's available, on internet to the public. So, and to accelerate the achievement of gender equality goal, policymakers must integrate the gender perspective into the public financial management system. I think we call it PFM in short, and that increase the gender sensitive public investment too. And your remarks are really appreciated. Thank you for that. As now moving ahead on our panel, we are having our expert panelists joining us today from Australia. Sahira Sumer, she is the Global Leadership Consultant Director. Okay. Sarah is a global leadership consultant, author, keynote speaker, coach, and she's also the director of UNAA NSW, leading the human rights pillar. She has been relentlessly working on her mission to empower the leaders for a better world, leaving her mark in over 25 countries, and has undertaken capacity building projects with organizations like the World Bank, World Health Organization, World Food Program, and also Aga Khan Development Network, often in far and remote destinations. Sarah is also the founder of Worldwide Heroes, a social enterprise dedicated to connecting women from underrepresented community and from the grassroots with the accomplished global mentors. So through this mentorship platform, she aims to guide and inspire women to reach their leadership potential, promote self-reliance, and also improve economic equity for all. And in just 2 years, Worldwide Heroes has engaged with 150 women across 35 countries, dedicating 1,000 hours to leadership mentoring and aligning these efforts with the 15 Sustainable Development Goals. And Sahara's motto is empowering a woman leaves a legacy and that shapes her future and impacts her future generation. So over to you, Sahara. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Priyanka, I'm just not able to share. Yes, I am. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I wanted to just share my screen. So hopefully you can see that.
Yes, we can see that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you all for the opportunity to present and to be on this wonderful panel on such an important topic. And Dr. Rakesh, very much for your insights and sharing. I will not repeat some of the statistics because I was planning to cover some of them, but I guess maybe just more, my focus really has been very much on women in leadership and looking at what it is that enables women to strengthen that leadership capacity. So I'd like to start actually, if I could, to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I stand, and particularly acknowledge the unique wisdom, knowledge, and leadership of Indigenous women. I wanted to just really touch very quickly that 10 years ago, the world leaders came together to adopt these 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. It was a call to action for governments, enterprises, and communities to come together, as identified by Rakesh, to end poverty, inequality, protect our planet, and ensure peace and justice. And this was all by 2030. And as Priyanka has mentioned, we are way off track. The entire goals, we've only achieved 12% of the goals. And for our gender equality goals, only 15%. So we have a lot of work to do. And just to reiterate, just some of the important statistics is that we are more than a century away from gender equality in positions of leadership and power. It's really quite appalling when you look at the track that we're heading on. And the pandemic, the climate crises, the geopolitical crises have all exacerbated inequality for women. The latest UN report says that the world is failing women and girls, and that there's 340 million women and girls anticipated to live in extreme poverty by 2030. So it really is a huge global problem. And when women are in such vulnerable positions, we know that they are more subjected to sexual violence, to exploitation, to trafficking, to modern slavery, to forced labor and forced marriage, and that they will likely never access education, healthcare, economic opportunity, land ownership, or any self-determination. So gender equality is not just a goal, it's actually a basic human right. And so why this importance of creating an enabling environment for leadership? Why is that so important? Well, I feel very strongly that leadership is not a role, and it's a mindset. It's where you stand for something greater than yourself, where you can build networks and put yourselves in position of influence, where you can become an agent of change in whatever area you choose, whether it's political, legal, education, health, or civil society. And that women in leadership serve as visible role models to challenge traditional stereotypes, to dismantle these systemic barriers and to shift cultural attitudes towards gender roles, influencing governments, reforming policies, and paving the way for future generations to rise. In essence, the benefit for a woman in leadership is not only to her family, but to the economy and to the community in which she lives. And this needs to start at home with our daughters, with our sisters, with our communities, our workplace, our boardroom, our courtroom, and our policy rooms. I feel so passionate that women can no longer afford to sit on the sidelines and wait to be invited or to be recognized. We need to create this space where there is none, and we need to give voice to those voiceless, and we need to redefine leadership and redefine success for ourselves. We have to own our world and be part of the solution and not part of the problem, wherever possible. I draw inspiration from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the Supreme Court judge, who said, girls belong in all places where decisions are being made. And if we keep that in mind, we constantly need to be reminded that the role that we can play. I have worked in over 25 countries with both community, non-for-profits, as well as corporate organizations. And I've come to the conclusion that leadership is no longer an option, but an absolute necessity in order to address the severe gender equality gap. And I believe that there are three major barriers that we need to overcome to achieve gender equality in leadership. These are systems, structures, and self, and all three are linked. Systems and structures are those that are institutionalized, often ingrained, and sometimes unconscious. They are the societal beliefs and stereotypes about the roles that women can play and their advancement. They're about discriminatory laws and policies, which 55% of countries still have discriminatory laws, where women cannot feel valued and respected in the workplace. It's about discriminatory access to education, vocational training, or advancement opportunities. And as mentioned by Rakesh, it's about unpaid care work as well. And these are the barriers that women face to stepping into leadership roles. These are entrenched in attitudes and require advocacy, require reform, and require financial investment in women. But the focus that I tend to take is very much on the self. The way women see and value themselves, which is both the problem and the solution. It can hold us back as well as it can be the catalyst to transform these systems and these structures. The self is often our biggest challenge and encapsulates our personal beliefs, our confidence, our self-perception, molded by years of societal expectation and cultural norms, creating the shadow of imposter syndrome, self-doubt, risk aversion, and taboo in pursuing leadership opportunities. It really intrigues me that I observe through the work that I have done that many dynamic, intelligent, and courageous women hesitate to embrace the label of leader and what it represents, and that regardless of their cultural or geographical background or their experience or their accomplishment, self-doubt is always lurking in the shadows. This suggests that we need to redefine leadership to encompass a more inclusive understanding of gender, embracing authentic traits often associated with female leaders, such as connection, collaboration, resilience, and empathy, things that are not generally rewarded in leadership positions. In 2021, with unwavering passion and commitment and purpose, I set about working on a mission to empower more women leaders for a better world. And I launched a social enterprise called Worldwide Sheroes. This is an online platform working with mentoring women of diversity and disadvantage to rise to their leadership potential. Through my travels in the developing world and the emerging economies and my experience with Australia in a lot of corporate roles, I was really confounded by this lack of inequality, that women in the developing world are equally as capable, but they just don't have the same opportunities. So with Worldwide Sheroes, we created an online platform that connects these women across the world. The heart of Worldwide Sheroes is the Shero itself, which is a woman who has who is accomplished mentor. She is a corporate woman, government, academia, entrepreneurship, and a leader herself who has pushed boundaries and overcome her own challenges. And now she wants to share her wisdom and her experience. And our mentees are aspiring women who want to do more, who want to be more, and who are come from countries like Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Syria, Egypt, Pakistan, India, Kenya, Uganda, Malawi, and 35 countries in total, who then have this ripple effect on their local environment and communities. So Worldwide Sheroes has created a supportive ecosystem that empowers and enables these aspiring women to thrive personally and professionally in their own environment. We've created a bridge where women of diverse backgrounds and cultures and economies come together and rise together. They share mutual admiration for each other's determination and resilience, and they advance gender equality by addressing issues like skill disparity, confidence, nurturing self-belief, fostering networks, and advocating for leadership pathways. It's really becoming a virtual village where we're really working together and building a scaffold for everybody to rise. We work in 10 industry categories, and on our third birthday, as was mentioned by Priyanka, this is our third year. We have now worked with 150 women across 35 countries with 1,000 hours of mentoring. And we're already starting to see an amazing shift in these women, in their confidence and their leadership capability, finding their voice, creating space for themselves, and really starting to make a shift. Last year, we were very lucky to be, last week, we were very lucky to be awarded with the International Women's Day Award. So it's just great to have that acknowledgement of the work that we're doing. We're now launching a She Rise program. Oh, sorry, these are the countries we're in, and these are our global mentors. And we really do value diversity and inclusion. It's all about inclusive leadership and the goals that we are looking to impact on. So now, in closing, we are launching our She Rise program, which is a personal transformational self-empowerment program, distinctive in its design to guide women anywhere in the world through a voyage of self-empowerment and self-discovery, to gain clarity on their vision and their goals, and to define their path, and to build their brand so they can ultimately take charge of their own tomorrow. Our vision is to accelerate leadership for women of diversity and underserved communities, and to amplify our reach, and to connect with First Nations women globally. Of course, this work cannot be done alone, and so we must now form partnerships and start to collaborate with other institutions and other organizations. And I guess I would like to use this platform to also send a call out to anyone who's interested to work with us on this global mission and to really help us stretch and grow in this space. So with that, I thank you so much for your time, and look forward to working with you perhaps on empowering more women leaders for a better world.
Thank you so much, Sahira, for sharing your work with us and talking about different statistics as well, and also your achievement. Congratulations on that, and of your really great work that you are doing. And as I can see, some of the comments by our participants here. Some of the participants are interested in joining your program, and they are asking how to join. As I can see that there is a new program, She Rise, from your side. It would be great if you can just share the link in the chat box here, so our participants can get access to that.
Sure, I will. Thank you very much.
And if also we can get the access to the presentation later, if you don't mind, then we can also share that to our participants as well, whoever registered with us today. And coming again to your remarks, thank you so much for your remarks. And just as a reminder for our participants, we are going to open the question and answer floors after concluding the remarks of all of the panelists here today. As I can see, some of you are raising your hands to ask the questions. Please stay with us, as we are also having two other panelists now in row, and then after concluding their remarks, we will open the floor to you. And feel free to write your comments, questions, and as this chat box is open to all of you. Thank you. So as Sahira, thank you for your remarks. And as you mentioned that, even the progress has been made in different regions. As you already mentioned that you have worked in 25 countries, but the global status of enabling environments for women leadership remains still uneven, and in many parts of the world, environment for women leadership remains, with the great barriers, discrimination, and then unequal access to education and employment opportunities. And what I found very beautiful is that you just mentioned that leadership is not a choice. Actually, it's a necessity now, and it's a mindset. So everybody can be a leader, everybody can advocate for the issues that they're having on their side, especially women. And there are notable examples of successful initiatives. One of them is yours, as you mentioned, and we are hearing a lot of initiative that has been made and been successful for women leadership. And these include legal reformations, then affirmative actions, measures, awareness campaigns. Many women leadership are, on the ground, and they are doing really great work in the communities, and especially the rise of grassroots movements that are advocating for the gender equality, and again the women rights. So moving forward, to addressing the systematic challenges and promoting the institutional reforms are very effectively the part of the imperative role that NGOs and organizations and special initiatives are taking on. That's very, very important, not on just a local scale, but it eventually contribute to the global development as well. So again, thank you, Sarah. As moving forward, we are having our other expert panelist, Ebere Akadiri. She's the founder of Rise and Lead Women Netherlands. Berry is the founder of Rise and Lead and Atharo Foods. She is an established business leader. She hails from Netherlands, and also a business mentor for women, an educator who explores the topic of entrepreneurship, women leadership, equity, and social justice. She is empowering the women for leadership and impact in the workplace and also in the marketplace. She's also the co-founder of Atharo Marketplace and the creator of Atharo Spices, which is a Western African food brand that sells globally. And she holds a master's degree in management and leadership from Webster University, USA, and believes that leadership is not about your title, but about using your position to drive the social changes. She also believes that when women and underrepresented community rise, families rise, and society gains. So over to you, Avery. We are very happy to have you today, and we love to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Priyanka, and thank you to our panelists for all the wonderful intervention and the work you're doing globally. Well done, Sahara and Mr. Rakesh. It's my pleasure to be here today to also add to what they have said, not to repeat what they have said. So first, let me try and share my screen, okay? And let me make it, yeah, thank you very much. So I'm happy to be here today to speak on this topic of promoting women's entrepreneurship, pathways to economic growth. And I actually love the theme for the theme of the CSW, Strengthening Institutions and Women's Leadership for Socio-Economic Development. So today I wanted to start by saying women entrepreneurs drive innovation, they create jobs, and they contribute to economic growth. Yet women face obstacles in accessing the resources needed to grow their businesses. I said this because I am a female entrepreneur and I have experiences to share, and also for those in my community. And so today I just wanted to take a moment to talk about the benefit of promoting female entrepreneurship. I want to also share the challenges we women entrepreneurs face when we want to grow a sustainable business, and also best practices in female entrepreneurship and a call to action. So we start by talking about the benefit of promoting female entrepreneurship. The first thing I have here is economic growth, and all the panelists have said so much, especially Mr. Rakesh spoke so much about economic growth. When female entrepreneurs provide jobs for themselves, for their families, for the communities, and in most cases, they provide employment also for other families. And this is how we grow economically. I read this report by the Boston Consulting Group, which estimates that the global economy would increase by up to 5 trillion if venture capitalist funding were equally allocated. But we know that they are not. Women contribute a lot in the ecosystem, but they are not being recognized, compensated, or even their businesses taken more seriously. And we have inclusive prosperity, which is also something I heard one of the panelists talking about. And also, I always like to look at, there is so much data out there. That's the thing I wanted to point out. There's so much data online out there that women's entrepreneurship creates millions of jobs. They reinvest up to 90% of their income back into their families and communities and amplify the positive effect of their successes. And they also have innovation and social change. One of my case studies here is Rent a Runway, which is a business, an e-commerce business founded by 2 women. You see, because when women want to start a business, they want to solve problems that is affecting women. We know what AI is doing today, ignoring women. And so when women come up, it's innovative because they're bringing solutions to solve problems that also affect women. But what happened is that VCs did not take them seriously when they wanted to start this business, Rent a Runway. And today, Rent a Runway is a multi-million dollar business, employing almost 1,000 people worldwide. So those are the things, those are the benefits of actually taking women seriously. And the last one is gender equality. And of course, there's a lot of data that our panelists shared on this topic. When women become independent through entrepreneurship, we are closing the gender leadership gap. We are also making sure that half of the population, their contributions, their intelligence, their skills are not lost. When we keep women away from economic participation, especially from entrepreneurship, society loses. We're not going to make this economic growth, we will lose it. There'll be poverty. Families will be hungry. I saw when one of the panelists talk about, all the issues with human trafficking. So many things happen when we don't focus on equipping women to rise, especially through entrepreneurship, because it's a form of job creation. So now, how do we create economic independence through promoting female entrepreneurship? For me, it's about building an ecosystem that supports women and truly support them in so many ways. We're talking about providing training, mentorship, sponsorship, financial resources for women. We can't do one and leave the other, because I'm going to share a little bit about my story with you. I wanted to take you back to, I think, 1999. This was the first time I stepped into the world of entrepreneurship. And I was 7 months pregnant and I lost my job. And I needed to be gainfully employed. I needed to earn salary. I needed to bring in income. But who was going to hire a 7 months pregnant old woman? It wasn't possible. So I resorted to entrepreneurship. So I first of all started with selling female clothing, making little profit. But then I realized, I could scale up. I could do something that is related to what I studied, because I studied food science and technology. And so I wanted to step into the world of restaurant business. And I didn't know that it needed so much finance, so much capital to launch a restaurant. I needed maybe about over $70,000. as far back as that time. And so I didn't know how to write business plans. I didn't know any of these things. So I had to teach myself how to write business plans. And then I started working from one bank, from banking institution to another, and then started facing these rejections. No, you're a first time. You don't have collateral. I don't have landed property. I don't have anything to secure the loan. So I faced a lot of rejections, but I didn't give up. I now met a woman who was heading one of the banks, who believed in my vision and my passion for this business. And she gave me the loan that I requested for. And that business grew. And within 3 years, we were in two major locations, 7 sales outlets, employing over 56 people, mostly women. So which means I was able to provide for my own financial independence and also supported over 50 families to provide them with financial independence. And this is the benefit of investing in women and taking women seriously in business. Now, I moved to the Netherlands in 2013, and one of the things I decided to do was to focus on helping women to find their gifts and use it to rise. So I founded Rise and Lead Women, and Rise and Lead Women is a nonprofit organization with a mission to increase the representation of women in leadership positions in workplaces and the marketplace. So I actually love what one of our panelists is doing, because it's similar. So she said, oh, we're doing the same thing. Yes, we are, because we need more people in this ecosystem to drive change. And that's what Rise and Lead is doing in the Netherlands and within Europe. And so in Rise and Lead, we're focused on education. First of all, we do a lot of education because we are focused on working with corporate organizations, also helping women in corporates to take up decision-making positions, because when they are taking up decision-making positions, they serve as a role model for other women who are our future leaders. And so we have a lot of educational program we call Connect to Grow, Rise to Leadership, Power Up Leadership, which is all areas of the pipeline. We also have programs for female entrepreneurs, and we have advocacy where we are advocating for inclusive leaders to empower women, to promote women, to sponsor women. We also want corporate organizations to include women in their supply chain, because, women's businesses are not taken seriously, I must tell you. We still think that women do micro businesses, so we need micro loans, and, companies don't even trust women to give them serious contracts. But we advocate for companies to do that, especially those who partner with us. And then we also have community events where we have Founders Table, we have Connect to Grow, membership, and Leaders Circle. So through Rise and Lead, I've seen so many women progress. So many women have built this self-confidence we're talking about to raise their hands and advocate for themselves, because if you're waiting for someone to do it for you, it's going to take a longer time. But if a woman says, I am determined to rise, nothing can stop that woman. Nothing can stop a woman who is determined to rise. So why we advocate for institutions, corporate organizations, investors to support women, we are also encouraging women to raise their voices and their hands to opportunities and ask for what they want. Chances are they will get it. And that's what we do in Rise and Lead. And so today I wanted to talk about some of the challenges women face, especially female entrepreneurs, when they are ready to, scale their businesses. One of them is lack of education and mentorship. And like I said, you don't know what you don't know. I didn't know how to write a business plan. So it's really important to actually build programs and institutions that is supporting knowledge sharing, mentorship, guidance, because mentorship is so powerful. And we have lack of capital. This is the worst. This is beyond my own stories. We've seen a lot of women in our ecosystem. The main issue is capital. Most times it's okay to give grants, 5,000 euros and all of that. But for women to build serious businesses, like their male counterparts. Men are raising funds up to 2 million. They're raising 500 million, and women are talking about 5,000. Look at the discrepancy in lack of capital for women-owned businesses. How do we solve that problem? That's my focus today. My focus on today's talk is on lack of capital. If we give women the capital that we give men, they will build stronger businesses, because studies have shown that women-founded businesses are even generating more returns on investment than the male counterparts. So why are we not investing in women? We'll look at it is because of gender bias. And unpaid labor, everybody has talked about unpaid care work. Care work is one of them. I say unpaid labor because somebody will negotiate with a woman and doesn't want to pay their worth, the right amount of their products. You know, everything about women should be volunteer, do it for free, everything about women. And then the care work at home that is being left for a woman, which has to be shared so that women can focus on building great businesses. And then we have market access. Of course, this is also when women are somewhere in their little space, how do they gain market access? It's through networking. And so if we don't build institutions that connect women to international trades, international partners, it's difficult to gain market access. And all of this, the major one, which I won't go deeper into, is systemic gender implicit bias. There are studies that have shown that when a woman goes to apply for loan, they will be asked some very difficult questions, preventive questions. Are you sure? Are you sure of that? But when a man is asking for loan, they are asking them promotional questions. What is your ambition? What are your dreams, your goals? And these things need to stop. Women need to be taken seriously in business, because over and over again, women have proven that they have what it takes to build successful businesses, invest in their families, invest in communities, drive change, and also support communities. So because I live in Europe, so I needed to give you data from Europe. And this is a recent data in 2022 conducted by Boston Consulting Group. In Europe, women-founded startups in Europe, about 10% started, business at that time. 7% tried to raise funds. Only 2% received funds. And this is a serious issue. If we can fix this issue of funding gap, we're going to have a more prosperous society, because we're going to empower half of the population to know that they can do serious business and share and distribute and help with economic growth. And so what we do in Rise and Lead particularly is to bring awareness with investors, with corporate organizations for the need to support women, and also bring trainers who can teach women on how to pitch their businesses to investors. And so what are the best practices we have seen if we are really, truly, if we want to really support, promote female entrepreneurship? Number one is access to capital. That's the first place to start. Let us make sure that women gain access to capital. And so financial institutions should be held accountable, even to be asked to present how many women did you give capital? How many did come to you? Last week, I was speaking to an investor and she said, oh, we don't see women. We don't see them. I said, because you're not looking for them. If you're looking for them, maybe you can come to a place like Rise and Lead Women and other organizations that gather women, bring women together, and then you will see them. So all of those excuses should be thrown away and find innovative ways to dismantle barriers to financing. Investors should deal with their biases against women. Women are intelligent, they are smart, they are contributing to the economy. And then we have education and training. For me, this is very important based on my experience, having women in an ecosystem that provides training, mentors. It's so powerful, because when someone is guiding you, it's easier. And then you have a supportive ecosystem that, brings all of these things together, and also advocate for policies that benefit female entrepreneurship. And then we have supplier diversity. And this is because I work also in the corporate space. And I know that many corporate organizations take supply, get their supplies from men, because the few women don't have the capacity to supply what they need. But women have that capacity. If more companies can invest and take a chance to get more women into their diversity pool, supplier pool, and then it's easier for women to get loan using the purchase order as collateral. So these are, all of these things are interconnected, and this is what we are seeing that works. And so I put some, action plans here that if anybody really is serious talking about promoting female entrepreneurship, as leaders, as policymakers, we need to advocate for change and enact it, make it work. Don't talk about it. There is data there. We can go back to data, and data. They are there online. We can use the available data we have and make sure we remove legislative obstacles on women's entrepreneurship, provide funding, provide grants. Institutions should invest in programs that support women. Don't say, okay, they didn't speak well, I don't like their pitch. Train them on how to pitch so they can get the money. Activists, we need to champion success stories of female entrepreneurs so that we can create role models for the future generation. And also investors, we must deal with our biases. We are biased against women, and it's actually a societal issue, like structural issue. But we can start putting our hearts to truly listen to women and start taking women more seriously. That's the way I like to say it. Take women seriously, because not taking women seriously means that society is losing, the economy is losing on the investment women can bring, and also everybody loses. But when we invest and promote female entrepreneurship, everybody gains, families gains, community gain. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Abra, for sharing this. Actually, this is very helpful for all of us and all of the women that are even looking to build small-scale businesses and being the entrepreneurs. And we are also having beautiful comments from our participants that this is so inspiring and valuable opportunity for them. I also shared the website link for Rise and Lead, but if you want to share some more information, then please write in the chat box, as different participants are looking forward to join your work and project that you are working on. And just to add some of the remarks from my side on this very important topic, and actually this is of our great concern when we talk about the women in leadership, especially connecting the small scale businesses that women are working, and they are underrepresented represented, and nobody talk about them even at the ground scale, especially in the remote areas where women are trying to find the employment for them or to sustain their family and to earn some amount to, help their family. And as you already mentioned, and our panelists also before mentioned that even there has been increasing recognition in promoting the women's leadership and then entrepreneurship globally. Many countries and organizations have implemented initiatives, for example, your Rise and Lead, networking opportunities, and then including, of course, to the training programs that you just mentioned, that, even if the speech is not good, then train them to build a networking opportunity. Mentorship is very important. But the research also indicates that the businesses led by women often demonstrate greater resilience and sustainability, and also making them the contributors to economic stability, prosperity. But On a negative note, I would also like to emphasize that despite progress, significant challenges persist in promoting women entrepreneurship worldwide, not just talking about the specific reason, but globally. And women entrepreneurs continue to face barriers, limited access to finance. You already mentioned the capitalization is a real big deal that we need to talk more about that and to focus on that as well. Unequal access to the markets and networks. So, cultural biases, we know many cases of that in different cultures. There are different things. Women often bear the burden of unpaid care work, and that you mentioned that unpaid labor, that's very important to emphasize on that. But addressing these barriers requires I think concentrated efforts from government, then businesses, business leaders, civil society organizations, and international organizations to create more inclusive, supportive environment for women entrepreneurs to thrive. And I think we all collectively can focus on that, and we can write the policy framework conversation as well as we submit to our remarks to our global partners. So thank you so much for your time and sharing us really valuable remarks for all of us and the participants as well. Now we are having our other very young panelist moving ahead to introduce she's the founder and CEO of Break the Ice India. She's very young and 20-year-old youth maker, an entrepreneur, environmentalist, and also a content creator from India. She has been winning many awards internationally. She is the founder of Break the Ice and featured in various publications across the world. So over to you, Palak. We would love to hear about your experience and about your remarks as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Priyanka. And it's such a pleasure to be a part of this conversation and to just share the panel with such distinguished individuals and speakers. I think more or less everything that I wanted to talk about has been covered already, but I really wanted to add my suggestions, ideas, insights into the topic because it's also something that I'm very passionate about. As an introduction, myself, I'm Palak. I am a youth change maker, environmentalist, and the founder of Break the Ice, an initiative where we are working on essentially breaking the ice about important topics which often get ignored. And someone who's very passionate about working on promoting the Sustainable Development Goals amongst my peer groups, amongst everybody that I essentially meet, and I'm from New Delhi, India. When we talk about today's topic of discussion and understanding how we can strengthen institutions and empower women to become leaders and hone their skills, I think an important factor that we need to focus on is understanding the very importance of women leadership. Because for the longest time, women have faced challenges, discrimination, marginalization in many areas of life. And most of it has been because of their gender, sadly. And sadly, many of us are also aware of it. We've seen it happen in our close circles, in societies, and at many different levels. So when we talk about the steps to actually empowering women to become the leaders that they are born to be, I think the first step has to be creating more awareness and driving this change from the grassroots to the top. And the good thing is that a lot of change is happening. It isn't that change isn't happening. It isn't that initiatives aren't coming up, but I think there is a lot more potential. And essentially, the first step is awareness, because as the discussion was happening, I think the biggest issue with creating women leaders is the taboo associated with it. And the taboo will go when awareness brings and comes forward. And that change can only happen from the grassroots to the top. Initiatives across global institutions, by youth organizations, by individual activists are creating change. But when we talk about further strengthening these institutions, the first thing that comes to my mind as a young change maker is how we can increase the access to resources for women. I think with a growing entrepreneurial ecosystem across the globe, not just a couple of countries, I think it's happening across the globe. When women get access to good networks, good resources, good opportunities, and the right mentors, they can definitely build and empower further. Because when we talk about women entrepreneurs, when we talk about women in essentially any leadership position, we need to make sure that they get access to all of this, to a network that will support her, to mentors that would guide her, to resources that would enable her to break those barriers and take those conversations forward, and to further support more and more women. Because when a few women get access to resources and opportunities, Like my fellow panelist was mentioning, it builds a legacy. And that is when they are further able to support more and more women. And again, as an optimistic individual, I think I would always mention a lot is happening. I can see initiators happening, even the initiators of all the panelists. I think it's very, very inspiring to hear them. The initiators I take at my own small level are also beginning to create change. And I know that a lot is happening. I've met and interacted with some of the most successful women entrepreneurs, and I've seen female entrepreneurs disrupting the system and essentially becoming empathetic and confident leaders. But again, there is a lot more potential. A homemaker that manages the entire house, when she's empowered with resources, can manage an entire company with passion and composure. And a multitasking mother, when trained and supported, can make her employees feel at home by empowering them at work. A young girl can definitely start her own initiative during her school life when empowered and given the environment and the awareness to do so. Because women are change makers, and if empowered, like the conversation we are happening, they can drive social and economic development at a whole different level. But again, for that to happen, a lot more interventions are needed. Through all the conversations we were happening, something that I want to highlight is the number one thing we need to do is create awareness and redefine leadership by building interventions at every space possible. And interventions should only happen when we understand the intersectionality of gender equality, gender equity, gender-based violence, as well as women well-being and leadership. When all of these are combined together and the intersectionality of all of them are understood, I think when interventions happen after that, those will be very valuable. Because then there won't be any contradictions. There won't be that one thing is growing and the other thing is lacking. I think all of them will grow together. And I think that's also the essence of all the sustainable development goals, because they're all very intersectional in nature. When we work on one, the other is also empowered if done the right way. So if we think about it, what can we do? And by we, I mean all the stakeholders involved, not just international institutions, not just youth entrepreneurs, but I think each and every individual. The first thing would be educating young girls, training them to lead and training them to explore and experiment through the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Another interesting thing I always focus on is bringing business-based programs, training cohorts for emerging female entrepreneurs, as well as leaders, and helping them advocate for not just gender equality, but gender equity. Because gender equality is further taken forward when there is gender equity. When you have the access to the right resources and the right funds and the right initiatives, you are empowered, and that is where an equal space is created. Along with that, I also believe that getting the right mentors, I think, like mentioned by all the fellow panelists, is truly very important. I never realized the importance of a mentor until I got one, and someone who actually guided me through her own suggestions, through her own experiences. And I think if women are given the right mentors, that can definitely transform their journeys as well and can help them actually get started as an entrepreneur, not just lead the way, to growth, but I think even get started. Because most women, they do not start because they don't know how to. Even if they have the ideas, even if they want to create change, more or less, they don't know where they can get started with that journey. And getting that guidance and support from veteran female entrepreneurs, getting the opportunities to even network with the best minds can drastically change their journey. And it can help them develop a strong mindset as well as navigate the path and overcome the challenges that they're facing. I think that is something that comes from personal experience as well. And I also believe that empowering shepreneurs, as we call them, through stakeholder collaborations, I think that is very important. Through policy additions, I think Mr. Rakesh also mentioned that structural changes are important. I think with structural changes comes policy additions and policy advocacy, because together they can be very, very effective when we're implementing them through the involvement of women in the decision-making processes and at the decision-making table. When women sit on the tables, they give additional ideas, and they share their struggles. And when these are inputted, that creates core policies which can work very well. And building those policies by taking their inputs, from people who have the experience to those who do not have any access to resources, that can ensure that the policies are not just comprehensive, but they're also inclusive and they highlight that diversity. Many, many policies at the global level are being built based on these inputs. And it's good to see that diversity is getting appreciated. But again, a lot more can happen. I think amongst my final remarks, I would highlight that young female entrepreneurs, they also face challenges in navigating and finding the right communities for them. The first thing which is important is mentors. And the second thing which is important is, of course, finances as well. But another challenge that they face is finding that right community that can support them and can collaborate with them. Because essentially, there are less female entrepreneurs because of the lack of a collaborative system. So I think if there is a system which is created that can help them find the right communities for them, communities that can foster their growth, that can provide support and a collaborative experience, I think if that is built at an international level, overcoming all the geographical boundaries, I think that can help a lot in bringing forward more young change makers, more young women who want to create and who want to build. That can be very empowering, and it can definitely help in strengthening the institutions and the values of community growth and collaboration. So yes, that would be it from my end. I wanted to keep it short and crisp from my side, and I think most of my inputs were already covered. We can definitely empower young female entrepreneurs through education, guidance, support, finances, and collaborations. So thank you so much to the organizers for having me. And yeah, wonderful to be a part of this conversation.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Palak, for such a great energy sharing with us, and such a powerful remarks that you just mentioned. And that just reflect, great aura, and our panelists are also feeling positive about it. And I know Palak from I think almost 2 years. I was very amazed to see that such a young woman, especially from India, and leading the initiative at the local scale and empowering other young women as well and educating them. So that's very powerful. And together we can build a community where women thrive and women get the opportunities to be the leader and to be the entrepreneur and to be included in the space that where they need to be here and taking the small initiatives. So thank you so much, Palak. As we are still having some time, so I would like to read some of the comments from our panelists as we are having some questions. And before some of our audience were raising hands, so I'll be asking my colleague Jamrit if we can add them as panelists so they can ask the questions. So I can read a question from. Okay, so we don't have any raised hand, but I will be reading the questions for you. So there is a question from Emin Akane, and I would like to read the question. How can civil societies and organizations like the ones the panelists are involved in hold government structures and institutions accountable for ensuring gender equality across board? There has been so much debates, recommendations, and solutions, but the gap is still widened. And this is a question from Emin. So I'd like to, I think the questions, maybe Syra, you can answer the questions. And this is more about the gap is still widened in the institutional structures and how there are still the debates and how we can even close the gap. So strengthening the institutions. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. That is definitely a difficult question, and I think accountability is very tough. But I think, as we've said, I think all of us have said how important it is that women find their voice and find a place in which they can then start to shape and change policy and change the way things are being done, and challenge. That's where we can put ourselves in a position to start challenging the norm and the status quo, and then holding governments accountable as we start to put ourselves in those positions of influence and of power. I think it's, these are entrenched behaviors and values that have built over years. So to now shift that thinking is taking will take considerable effort and time, and I guess it has to happen in multiple ways. So the more we can put ourselves forward in positions of influence, I feel is where we will start to break down some of these structures. And we're already starting to see that, but it is taking time. And I think being at the peace table, I feel very passionate about women leading peace, and being involved in those sorts of discussions are very important, particularly as you said the gap is widening. Then we need to be more involved at the peace negotiating table. Unfortunately, there's very few women that are. But I'm sure the other panelists would have some other thoughts.
Rakesh, would you like to add something about it? That the gap is still widened, and when we talk about different policies and strengthening the institutions and the government sectors, so there has been different debates, but there is no specific recommendations still.
I think I completely, yeah, sorry. Ebere, you want to go ahead, please.
Go ahead first. Yeah. It's okay.
So I completely agree with what Sahira just said, that it's difficult. And I think what we also need to recognize is a lot of these government institutions are also inherently patriarchal. Okay, they have had leadership that are very, very strongly patriarchal, and their quest has always been to maintain status quo. So it's a whole different world out there for women to go and negotiate, but the only way through is to negotiate and to continue to, negotiate and engage, because a lot of times people tend to give up. Okay, and there are kind of pressures that are put on women and women's organizations to stop negotiating. I think that is where we need to put our strengths and collective strength and abilities to continue negotiating with the government at whatever, like I think Sahira mentioned, that you need to find a chair at the table. Okay, and somebody said that if you don't get a seat, please take your own folding chair, right? So that's the only way through. So there is no, I think, shortcut to advocacy, to constantly negotiate and question. The other thing which I want to say is that if we see that the gap is widening, okay, in another sense, it is also a very welcome development, because then we have evidence, okay, and that helps and empowers us to then show the government that there is evidence to say that the gap is widening. There's data, okay, which is very hard for the government to then deny. So in that sense, I will also say that more and more reporting and disaggregated data is a powerful tool to use at the negotiation table. Yeah? Thanks.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. So for me, I believe that governments are there to provide enabling environment for business and transactions, for women to do businesses. When it comes to female leadership, especially in Europe, the government, the EU, has done quite a lot in terms of creating some of all of these programs we talked about. They have put some quota system where, corporate organizations need to hire a certain number of women in leadership position by this time. So every year they raise that bar. I think by 2026, they want more balanced leadership. So it depends on the country, and it depends on the people who are legislating and also advocating for government to do something. But in the case of female entrepreneurship, besides giving grants, to business, I see them giving grants and also partnering with a lot of banking institutions to provide loans and small business financing for women, underrepresented, that's what they call them, communities. So here, government is actually doing some things, but I know around the globe, we could do better. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, Ebere, Rakesh, and Sahira for answering this question. I'm moving to.
Could I, sorry, just add one more point on that? Just while
yes,
the discussion is out there, I think having male advocates and allies is absolutely essential. And I congratulate Dr. Rakesh or Mr. Rakesh for being here, because I think particularly, as you did say, with governments, they are mainly patriarchal. It's the men that have to hold them accountable, because the women aren't often there. So I think it's, we forget that very important 50% of the population that really needs to stand up and hold everyone accountable. So yeah, just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, Sahira. That's very helpful to complete answering the questions that our panel participants have. So here is Niri Goit asking a question. Please unmute yourself, and you'll be in the panelist section. You can ask your question.
Good morning, everyone. It's morning where I am. Okay, thank you so much for the insightful sessions and the wonderful panelists that we have. in this parallel event. I'm very happy to have participated in this. I had to wake up from sleep to join this session. It's around 1 a.m. in New York right now, but that's to show how interested I am in this session. So I just want to ask, can some of these networks be extended to Nigeria? Like the is it Shiros and the Shirais, the one on the entrepreneurship by Ebere, and the one on Shiros by Sahira. I work with ActionAid. I'm the women's rights lead in ActionAid Nigeria, and I'll be very happy if I can work with you to to become part of your network. First of all, to become part of the entrepreneurship and the Sahira's network, and also see how we can expand that in Nigeria, because these are very important networks and they are needed across the globe and for international collaborations, so I'm very interested in it. Thank you.
Can I go?
Also to
Yeah,
add,
go ahead.
Also to add that in Nigeria, I work on a project that we manage over 100 women's rights organizations and movements, from the national, subnational, and grassroots levels. So being part of these networks will also help me to see how we can incorporate some of these feminist movements. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for asking that question. Is it MM? I don't know who asked the question, if it's MM. Of course, you should know I'm a Nigerian, and we also have our presence in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, we had organized one of the biggest conferences in Nigeria in 2020. Is it 22? Yeah, just during the pandemic. So they didn't let us come. So you can reach out to me via LinkedIn. We have our contact in Nigeria because they always meet every month, and we bring different speakers from here to kind of provide education for those in Nigeria. And maybe just contact me. Let's see how you can get involved. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add to that too. Thank you, Neri, I think, for your excellent question and passion to get your women involved. We would welcome to have you on Worldwide Sheroes, provide your women with mentors and have a look at the needs and how we can help and address your needs. Just maybe email me at worldwidesheroes@gmail.com and we can take it from there and have a chat. But I think it would be great to partner with ActionAid and work with your women. So yeah, happy to help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abere and Sarah. Thank you for asking your question. I hope both panelists answered your questions, and please stay connected with them, as they're also available on LinkedIn if you are there. And I also shared the website link of both of the panelists and their website and of their project, so you can also go up and check that as well. I'm going to read other questions. There's one question from Sashikala, and she's asking how to increase the VC. I think that is venture capitalization, as if I'm not wrong, funding for women entrepreneurs. What are the negotiating points? Not sure if Ebere or Sahara, I think that's more aligned with your expertise.
I think that's Iberi's actually. If you want to kickstart Iberi, then
Ebere,
I'm happy
you
to.
are muted.
Sorry, please, what can you repeat the question again, please?
So the question is how to increase the VC funding for women entrepreneurs, and what are the negotiating points?
Okay. Yeah, I wrote an article about that a while ago because I was invited by these VCs that was 4 years ago to talk about gender, the funding gap in the VC ecosystem. So I shared this story with them, and maybe you can go look it up. There's a tech talk by Dana Kanze. She talked about about the research that was asked by TechCrunch investors, and then they downloaded the transcripts, and they over the years, and they saw that women were positioned to fail and not to get the money because of the type of questions they asked them. So when people ask you negative questions, that's the negative energy you bring. So because of the implicit bias. And so men, they ask themselves different questions, and they asked women this question like 66% of the time. So what we agreed at that time was that there need to be education for investors to kind of make sure they ask everybody the same question. The same question they're asking men, the same tone, the same voice, that's the same voice that they will use for women. And then we educated women that, listen, when you receive those kind of negative, preventive focus question, are you sure the business will run? Turn it, flip it, and start talking about your ambitions, your intentions, your goals, your visions. No matter what they ask you, flip it and make it about your ambitions, your goals, and whatever you get. So that's one of the things that has been working. Another thing is that we still have 2%. 2% is too low. So we continue to advocate for government intervention, for venture capitalists, banks, to do something about it and give women the opportunity to get funding. Besides that, we still have a long way to go. But then, in terms of a woman, I would say, as a woman, start somewhere. Start with family bootstrap, like start with family finance, or start selling. Even you can use other people's money, which is come up with an idea where you can already sell before you even produce. Because when you start building momentum, all of these funds start to come to you. Like the story I shared, the first time I asked for bank loan, everybody said no, no, no. After 2 years, they saw that my business was successful. Every bank was throwing at me, do you need money? Do you need money for expansion? So when we started expanding, getting funds became very easy. So start small and keep the momentum going, and don't give up, and get some guidance on how to go about securing funds.
Yeah, that's great advice, Abiri. I would add, the only thing I would add to that is be very clear and be confident about what you're doing, because I think as women, we tend to hesitate. We second guess ourselves. It's all around that self-belief again. And I think if we go there with the confidence that we know what we're doing, but build your mastery. So be confident in your product or service, that what you're doing actually works and you're very happy and comfortable with it. That will give you the confidence. So yeah, I think it comes with that as well.
Yeah, you're right.
Thank you, Abiri and Sahira. Yes, confidence is very important. And I would also say that please don't hesitate to do anything, even looking for opportunities and asking for help from different people, and be open to them. There is another question from Ekane, and I think that will be aligned with both of the expertise of Rakesh and Palak. So the question is, how can women in the grassroots be enlightened to make a change, or a change can be made bearing in mind the patriarchal beliefs that are inherent in many cultures against women empowerment? So it's also relating with the patriarchal norms and how they can get enlightened, especially at the local level. So I think, Rakesh, if you would like to, and then look as well after Rakesh.
So thank you, Priyanka, and for that question. And I think something that all the panelists have kind of agreed on and shared from their personal experiences is the need for solidarity. So a lot of the feminist movement, if I may say, has thrived only because there was a very strong solidarity across regions, across countries, and especially for grassroots women leaders, they find power in numbers. They find inspiration in numbers. Okay, inspiration in stories. So I think I remember, in Abiri's presentation, she mentioned how we need to champion these stories. That gives the confidence. Again, also something that was reiterated by Sahira, that you have to keep, sharing each other's energies. That's very, very important. Secondly, also is that if we are able to, strategize, because apart from being a collective, a lot of these experiences can be very, very unique. Okay, whether it is about violence, whether it is about state repression, or it is about any kind of lack of access, Okay, all of these can be very, very unique challenges. Okay, so one is to understand the nuances of these challenges and then to find the support systems. Okay, and I know that, my panelists have also repeatedly mentioned this idea about an ecosystem. Palak has also been talking about, Priyanka has also been talking about an ecosystem. So tap into the ecosystem. Okay, don't feel alone. So that is the only way, that you're able to, sort of put forth, the strength of your idea and the fact that you're not alone. Okay, and there is no, as I said, there is no shortcut to finding your way through the difficulties and through the challenges, and find your allies, find your support, and be confident, and be very, very firm in what you believe in. Okay, be fearless. That's what I would say.
I'll just quickly add to that. I think the first thing absolutely is finding your allies. The solidarity can work in the longer run as well if you are close with your tribe and if you're also confident in your numbers and in yourself and in the work that you're trying to build on. The second thing I would say is, of course, the awareness is an important part of enlightenment. People can only be enlightened when they have the right kind of awareness. So I believe that if programs are built that can create awareness at the grassroots level, so that there is also, I think, patriarchal beliefs can be removed when there is a strong solidarity and when there is awareness that maybe these beliefs can be removed and maybe we can rise above them and be confident and work towards empowering ourselves. So I think, yeah, solidarity and awareness, it would be.
Thank you very much, Rakesh and Palak, for answering this question. That's really helpful for the participants. So for the last question for today, as we are about to wrap and we are running out of time, is from Samira. What innovative solutions can be introduced to address the unique challenges faced by women in the urban areas? So that's more about innovative and I think the tech solutions. So not sure if Abere or any of you can address this question.
I can share based on what I've heard within my community. I mean, this is not what we do, but I've seen a lot of fintech companies who are really leveraging technology to bridge the gap, especially the funding gaps. And I know that institutions like MasterCard, who also partners with us, support such initiatives that can help people in the rural communities to learn how to access funds from the bank and how to keep their money, how to do small profit and loss in their businesses. And I know there are initiatives like that run by MasterCard in Nigeria. I know there are a lot run in India and also other parts of Africa. So technology is already there. People are already in that field using technology, first of all, to bridge the funding gap. When we talk about technology for education, I've been invited severally from initiatives sponsored by Nigerian government to train from here on how to bring, exports, how to package food products and export to Europe. Or even train on how to become an entrepreneur. And even what we are doing now is technology. So yeah, it requires an individual who is committed to driving change, to go to those rural communities and connect with people like us, the government, or other people, civil society organizations, to see how you can impact based on what you're learning. How do you take it and support people in rural communities?
Yeah, I might add to that. Thank you, Abiri. That was good. And for the question, I think it's a great question because there's a lot of women out in rural and urban areas that are perhaps a little more disadvantaged in some way. But I think technology is the way. SHEROES is all online. The whole program, everything is online, so it's a global program. And what we find is it enables women to work in firstly their own time as well. And the mentors are really help them to broaden their outlook. So they've got a combination of things that they can do themselves, and that in itself is empowering. but then they've also got someone to speak with who then gives them and opens their mind to what's possible, because sometimes you're caught in your own challenges and you can't see what else is there out there. And this is where a mentor plays a crucial role in sharing their own journey, sharing some wisdom, and really opening their minds. So it may not be innovative, but I think it's extremely powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Samruti, for asking the question. Thank you, Abray and Sarah, for answering this. This must be helpful for Samruti. So we are actually running out of time, but there is one question for Rakesh in the Q&A section here. And I'd like to repeat it for you, Rakesh, but please be quick for the reflections as we are moving forward to wrap it up. So this is a question from Pranay Karuna. Hi Rakesh, with the stringent CR compliance and corporatization of impact, the whole efforts from NGOs contributing in gender space have changed significantly, and foundation and multilateral funds are only option to do what truly believe in. And how do we solve this?
So this is thank you for that question, Pranay. I think this is a unique sort of situation in India, where the government is, streamlining and in a lot of ways regulating, funds that come to civil society organizations for various reasons. And as the law and its interpretation is evolving, number one, and number two, as civil society organizations are adapting to this new regulatory framework, I think it's only, honestly, it's only time will tell. Okay, but we have the social stock exchange. I can see that a lot of organizations are already registering on the National Social Stock Exchange as an alternative to, get funds that are fully regulated by the government. But yes, it's going to be a huge, shift. It's going to be a new funding landscape. Okay, even international funding, like you say, is not going to be easy, coming in anymore. Okay, and CSR seem to be the way forward, but the kind of CSR rules that we see now do not permit them to also sort of support civil society organizations. So it's an emerging and sort of evolving landscape, and we'll have to only wait. So that's honestly my response. Thank you.
Thank you, Rakesh. I hope, Brendan, that can be helpful for you. And please stay connected with Rakesh as well. He's very active on LinkedIn, if you are available on LinkedIn too. So thank you so much to our distinguished panelists, and of course to our participants who are waking up early in the morning and joining late and from different geographical locations. That's very sweet of you. Thank you for joining us for this amazing panel. And I hope that will be helpful for many of the women, and we together can work on the women empowerment and tackling all of the issues around the world, and we are able to. So thank you so much, and it's time to wrap up. Let's stay connected even later on, and I wish you a very great time ahead to our participants, to our panelists too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Priyanka.